This time I'm assembling and reviewing the X-Carve CNC machine. Most of you probably already have seen this exact machine on other YouTube woodworking channels like mine, but if not, I have to clear some things up at first. I did not buy this machine, but I got it sponsored by Inventables in exchange for my honest review in form of a video. And when I announced that I got this machine, I already got comments from people asking why I too got this machine, because YouTube gets filled up with videos about this machine. But if you had some ideas that would make use of a machine like this, and then you get one offered for free, would you say no? So now let's jump back in time and take a look on how I assembled this machine. It's cool how they labeled each individual box with the content it has. Should make it idiot proof. Core components, power supply, motion controller, spindle. Alright, now that everything is unboxed,
okay, let's get a little bit more serious now. One thing for sure, all the parts were really well packaged. Nothing came damaged even after a trip from the US to Germany. All the parts come individually packaged in small bags, which makes it really simple to put together all the sub-assemblies. The instructions they put together are really good. Almost everything is shown in detail in videos. Besides that, everything is also explained with text and pictures, and there's a material list for each step. After the first bits, it felt pretty much like I was putting together a Lego car. And if you have ever put together Lego stuff, you will also be able to put this machine together. I got the fully loaded machine that has a small set of tools, which includes pretty much all you need to assemble it, but a small drill makes the whole process a lot easier. That's especially noticeable when you have to screw in the self-tapping screws. Eventually, it started to look like a machine. The wiring part was also straightforward and explained in detail as well. The fully loaded package includes the limit switches, which require a little bit of soldering. As I have soldering experience, that wasn't a big deal for me. Actually, this kind of soldering work isn't difficult at all.
and here's a little pro tip for soldering. You should not touch your soldering iron right here when it's hot. If you do so, you will feel your mistake pretty quickly and something like this will happen.
Getting the wires through the drag chain was a little tricky, so I taped the ends together and that made it much easier.
Now 144 threaded inserts and one one Allen key.
This bigger version of the machine has aluminum extrusions as supports on the bottom, which again went together really simple. Last but not least, I had to prepare the electrical components, which are the Arduino, the G-Shield and the power supply. Connecting the wires to the power supply and the G-Shield was straightforward, and then I could adjust the machine.
Adjusting these V-rollers is really made simple with the eccentric nuts, and it really works well except for this one, because there's just no way to get the Allen key behind the screw and grab it. You could move it all the way down to get clearance, but the spindle would hit the wasteboard before you can reach the screw. So what you have to do is to remove the motor, and then you can move it far enough down. And now I can reach the screw with the Allen wrench and adjust this last V-roller. During the setup I also smashed one of my limit switches because I moved the Z-axis too far up and was hitting the switch. You may wonder why I didn't feel that. Well, this is kind of difficult to explain. Not my greatest idea. Alright, I have my machine fully set up and already connected to the computer. At first I had some problems connecting it, but that turned out to be an easy fix. Now I have another problem with my X and Y axis. They move way too far and all the designs are scaled up by quite a lot. For example, I have a step interval set to 1 inch. Now I move it by 1 step. And I can tell you that this is more than 1 inch. It took me a little while to figure out how to fix this problem, but I finally found an article in the Inventables forum that shows how to fix it, and now I'm going to show you how I did it. So first I had to measure how far the axes actually move. I have a step interval set to 1 millimeter, and now the dial indicator is set to 0, and now I move by 1 millimeter. And it actually moves by about 6.25 millimeters. Now you have to keep this value in mind.
Then I headed over to Easel and opened the machine settings. You get to them by clicking Machine, then go to Advanced and hit the Machine Inspector. Here you can see all the settings of your machine, and the settings we need to look for are the steps per millimeter for the X and Y axis. They are set to 250, and as we just measured, that's too much and we need to change them. To calculate the right value, you simply take the current value of 250 and divide it by the value you just measured. In my case 6.25, and that equals 40. Now to change the settings, you go to the console and type in the new value. Hit enter and reload the settings. You should see the value you just typed in. Do the same thing again for the other axis and set up your machine again. If you bought the machine yourself and ran into the same problem as I did, I hope I could help you with this, and I put a link in the description to the forum article where I found this solution. Now it should work correctly.
Now to check if it worked, I again have a step interval of 1 millimeter, and now I move 1 step and it moved by 1 millimeter.
Finally, I could do the first test carvings.
Not bad, looks pretty good. Maybe I should have used a bigger piece of scrap, but for the first test, that's pretty nice. After that first test carving, I made another simple design that Easel offers, and it's a little bit fuzzy because I didn't sand it yet. This is straight from the CNC, and it also looks really nice. Then I tried one of these engraving cutters and engraved a little bit, and engraving my name really looks nice. And I already made a first inlay work, and that also comes out really nice, except for I misaligned the machine a little bit and this part of the circle is missing. But other than that, it fits perfectly.
The Easel software also has a gear generator, so I tried that out next.
They work really good. After seeing how well these bigger gears work, I tried to make some smaller ones, and they also work really well. And then I made some tiny gears, and they also work, even if you put 4 of them in a row. So you pretty much can't argue with the precision of this machine. It's really good.
Once I knew everything was working, I adjusted everything to be square and I put Loctite on everything that shouldn't move.
Squaring up in this direction is really simple and was also explained in the instructions, but squaring up in this direction was not explained in the instructions. And to be honest, there's no really good way to do that. What I did is I shimmed this rail here with a few pieces of paper, and for the most that did the trick. My machine has the homing switches, but they are not really that useful. Of course they bring the machine to a home position, but other than that they don't do really much. I have a little program running with the spindle turned off, and now if I push one of the limit switches, it has no effect at all. The machine keeps running. But shouldn't limit switches do exactly that? If the machine accidentally hits a wall and triggers one of the switches, then stop the program? During the assembly I ran into a problem with the belts because they just kept slipping out of their clips. And to fix that I then put on some zip ties to really hold them securely, and that allowed me to tighten the belts. In theory this works really well, but I think they should improve on these belt clips a little bit so that they work properly. Another not really big issue is that you can't reach the 0 point with the bit. That's as far as it will go. I don't know if it's intended to not reach it, or if it only can reach it if you're using a trim router and not the stock spindle. And while we're talking about the stock spindle, for getting started with the CNC it's alright, but if you want to do any serious work you really have to upgrade to a trim router or another solution, because it's just not powerful enough and it vibrates too much. If you look at how tiny the shaft is and the distance between the bearing and the end of the bit, it's just so much and can flex and vibrate quite a lot, so keep that in mind. And the last issue is the machine comes with 2 wrenches, and one fits on the nut on the spindle and the other one should fit on the shaft, but it doesn't. To be honest, this is really not a big issue and anyone with a vise and a file can fix this in a minute. But come on, is it so hard to make a wrench that fits? But don't get me wrong here, this is a really nice machine. If I tell it cut out a shape, it cuts out the shape and does it really accurate. The issues I just mentioned are not really that big of a deal. I just wanted to let you know. There's just a last bigger problem that depends on where you live. I live in Germany, so this machine had to be shipped from the US to me. As it was sponsored, I didn't have to pay any shipping costs, but just to let you know, it would have been more than $500 plus a little over 300 euros toll, so just 800 to 900 euros to get the machine from the US to me. So to be honest, if you live in Europe and have to pay all that shipping costs and other costs, you really need to be serious about it. Other than that, I wouldn't recommend to get it. As I didn't really make a project in this video other than these pretty useless gear toys, I already have some ideas. For example, this machine needs dust collection, and I also have a lot of other ideas that will make use of this machine, so I hope I will get to them in the near future.
And I almost forgot a very important thing. Actually, one of these future projects I will make now.
Cheers. If you had some ideas that would make use of me, when I announced that I got an X-Carve, now 144 threaded inserts. Fuck. Now to check if it worked. No. Alright. And then I try to make some tiny gears. Tiny gears?